algebra. Okay, everybody have objective 78 out. We're going to do 78 and 79 because they're basically the same thing. So, starting with 78, graphing linear equations. Up to this point, we started talking about slope, and then we started putting lines into a coordinate plane. What did we say slope was? What does slope mean? Slope means rise over. What does it mean in real world?
Steepness.
Steepness. It's how steep something is. And then when we say it as a fraction, that thing is like saying is slope is rise over run. So slope is rise over run. And we usually use rise over run thinking about you go up and to the right. So if your slope is positive, you go rise and you run. What do we say if your slope's negative?
You fall and then
You
run.
fall and you run. You're always going to run to the right. So just regular positive slopes, go up, go right. If it's negative, fall over run. But you see 2/5. That means what? Rise how much?
2.
Rise 2.
And you run 5.
And run 5. And then underneath it you can maybe put up and right. And we're going to use 2/5 on this first example. So when you got 2/5, that means rise 2 and run 5. Use the graph below to sketch a line with a slope of 2/5, and then they're going to say start at the point -2, -3. Just kind of an arbitrary point out there. So we have a line that goes through this point, -2, -3. What's the slope of it supposed to be?
Down to...
Whoop.
Up to
Up.
over 5.
Yeah, so the slope is 2/5.
I was looking at -2, -3.
Yeah, no, the point -2, -3. The slope is 2/5. So from the point
Up to...
Up to over 5.
up 2 and over 5. So if I said apply the slope, go up 2, right 5, and then what do I do when I get here?
Put a dot.
Put a dot. So go up 2, right 5, and put a dot. That's called applying your slope. Find a starting spot and apply your slope. And now that you have 2 dots, what should I do?
Draw a line.
Draw a line. The whole thing is we're trying to find a specific line. So that is a slope of 2/5, and it just happens to go through the point that they wanted us to go through. All right, on the next page, you're going to see what the equation of a line looks like. Starting with the most basic form of a linear equation. You're going to have to get very, very familiar with this. The most basic form of a linear equation is called slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form. Remember that. Slope-intercept form. What it looks like is y equals mx plus b. This is called slope-intercept form. I put little arrows under the m and the b. The reason I have you put those arrows is because you won't see an m or a b in your equation. These are where the numbers go. So you will see y equals 5x plus 2, or y equals 2/5 x minus 4. Numbers will be in the m and b spots. The m represents the slope. So whatever number is next to x, whatever number is right here, the first number after the equal sign, you can circle it and call it the slope. So the m is always going to be the slope of the line, and we should know a little bit about slopes. Then the b is always going to be what we call as the y-intercept. And the y-intercept is the spot where it crosses the y-axis. That's the up and down axis. The y-intercept is the number on the y-axis where the line will cross the y-axis. We will usually start by putting a dot on the y-axis. So here's our first example. And we're not even going to graph this one. We just want to look at this, and it goes y equals 2/3 x plus 4. Circle this number, 2/3, and circle this positive 4. What's my m?
2/3.
2/3. And my m always represents the what?
Slope.
Slope. So my slope is
2/3.
2/3. So you know, it's a line that's got a 2/3 slope. the b is where it crosses the y-axis.
4.
So it crosses at 4, or you could say positive 4. 4, or positive 4. The next thing we're going to do is talk about, okay, once you identify the slope in the y-axis, how do I make that line? So it starts on the next page when it says my first graph here. Y equals 1/3 x minus 2. Okay, circle the slope. What is the slope?
1/3.
1/3, circle it. Understand the number next to x is the slope. 1/3. And just for math's sake, so we can communicate the same thing, I know we're freshmen and we're young and inexperienced. When I say what's the slope, don't say 1/3 x. The slope is the number right here next to x. So what is the slope?
1/3.
1/3. The y-intercept
-2.
is not positive 2,
Negative.
negative 2.
Minus 2.
And now we're going to try to graph this. If you have the slope and the y-intercept, you should be able to graph it. Start by putting a dot on the y-axis for the y-intercept. So right here, this is the starting point. If my y-axis is -2, my y-intercept is -2, where is that located?
On the left 2.
Yeah, here's the y-axis.
Oh, never mind.
Here's the y-axis. So if I said -2, do you think I go up 2 or down 2?
Down.
Go down 2. Your starting spot is always going to be where you cross this axis. And it says -2, so you're going to cross right there. Put a dot right there. This line, for sure, goes through that dot. That is the y-intercept. Y-intercept is -2. Now go to that point and apply the slope. What is the slope?
1/3.
1/3. So up 1 and over 3. Apply the slope from here. Don't go to the origin and go up 1 over 3. I've seen that happen. People will go, oh, the slope's 1/3, so here's my second dot. No. Plot the point, the starting point, and then from here, go up 1 and right 3. The line crosses through this point, and then goes up 1 over 1, 2, 3. And then you can draw the line through it. Okay, second example. This time you don't have a fraction. Your slope is -2, and your y-intercept is 6. If your slope is -2,
-2 over 1.
it's -2 over 1. Because then you have a rise run, or in this case, not a rise run, but what? A fall and then a run. If your slope is negative, we are not going to be rising at all.
No.
We're going to fall by 2. What is my y-intercept?
6. 1.
+6.
Just 6. Just 6.
It's at the top.
Okay, if my y-intercept is 6, where do I put my dot? Y-intercept is my starting
Go
spot.
up 6.
Oh, wait.
Yeah. Just go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's right there. So it's the very, very top one right here. That's your starting spot, your y-intercept. Starting spot. Y-intercept is the starting point. Y-intercept is the starting point. And then apply your slope from here. My slope is -2. So where do I go?
Down 2 over 1.
Down 2 and over 1. And here's your dot. And that's what your line should look like. And that's definitely a negative slope. Because remember, as slopes are read from left to right, negative slopes should be going down, 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 down. Example 3. All right, put example, or I guess that's example 4. Graph number 3, example number 4. I put this on here because this is going to pop up on your work at some point. And it's going to look funky and you're going to ask me what to do. This is called f of x. Circle this. And Colby, read this right here for me. This is called f of x, so this is
fx is the same as y.
the same as y. So even though you see this fx, as far as we're concerned, at this point in Algebra 1, this is the same as y equals mx plus b. What's your slope?
1 over 7.
Yeah, 1 over 7. And what's your b? What's your y-intercept?
4.
4. Your b is 4. So where am I going to start?
Go up 4.
By going up 4 and putting a dot. There's where you start. Straight up 4.
Up 1 over 7.
And then from there, go up 1 over 7. Notice, do not do 1 over 7 from the origin. Do 1 over 7 from this point right here. Up 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's very, very flat. 1 over 7 is a very flat line. And lastly, we do have a little bit of an issue. On this y equals mx plus b, there is no number where m is supposed to be. Do not think that that means it's 0.
It's 1.
It's 1. So actually put a 1. Physically put a 1 right there. When there is no number x, put a 1. What is my slope?
1 over
1. Or as a fraction,
1.
1 over 1. So my rise is 1 and my run is 1. What's my y-intercept?
2.
2. So where should I start?
Go up 2.
Up 2. Alright, and if my slope is 1 over 1, I will go from this starting spot
Up 1 over 1.
up 1 over 1. There we go.
It's going to be easy now.
Alright. And that is it for objective 78. Slope-intercept form is y equals what?
mx plus b.
Y equals mx plus b. The letter m represents what?
The slope.
Slope. The letter m represents what?
Slope.
Slope. And slope is what letter?
M.
M. And then the b is what?
Y.
Y-intercept.
Y-intercept. What's the y-intercept?
B.
B.
Okay, keep all that in mind.